Hi everyone, this is part 3 of our Adobe Illustrator jacket drawing tutorial. We'll pick up right where we left off on part 2 so we can complete our front sketch. Okay, so we're going to unlock everything. And at this point, we're going to drag over this whole half of the garment with our black arrow. We're going to click on our reflect tool, click on any point in the center of the garment, hold Alt, Shift, and drag over to the right side with your mouse. And I'm just going to use my arrow keys to bring this out a little bit because sometimes it doesn't reflect exactly perfectly where it should go. And before I release my mouse, right now when I have this whole half selected, I'm going to right click and do Arrange, Send to Back. And I wanted to send that to the back because I want this side, the first side that we drew, to overlap over the other side. So now it's in the right place. So let's quickly do the last parts of this sketch. The parts that are meeting in the middle are going to have to be joined, and that's really easy to do. With our direct selection tool, we're just going to drag a box over these 2 points and do our keyboard shortcut for join, which is Control J and Control Alt J. Make sure it says both, click OK. And then on this bottom point, again, Control J to join, Control Alt J to average. Make sure it says both and click OK. Now you see the line that was here, the one that was a reflection of this line, has disappeared. And that's just because that happens sometimes when you join things or group things. But that line is still here. It just fell behind that collar that became one piece. So we're just gonna take the fill off the collar for a second, click on this line, right click, and arrange, bring to front. And then we'll put the fill back on that collar, and as you can see, the line is where it needs to be right now. Okay, and I'm gonna make these two lines are still purple. I'm gonna change them to the same fuchsia so all my outlines can be the same right now. And sometimes you have a lot more points that need to be joined, but on this garment, luckily, that's all that needed to be joined. So I'm just gonna drag over everything, Control 2 to lock it again. And I'm gonna draw now the inside back, which is this area and this area. And we can do that really quickly. Since it's gonna be behind everything in the front, we don't have to draw any perfect shape. We're just gonna draw kind of like this irregular shape that's gonna go behind what you see in the front. And I'm gonna make the color a little bit darker color than the front just so that we can tell what's the front and what's the back. So let's make this like a light gray color. The stroke doesn't matter because we're not gonna see that. And I'm gonna do Arrange, Send to Back. So you see now it's all the way behind everything that we have drawn already. And you can see that this center front shadow that we made is looking pretty nice against the inside back. And we're gonna do the same thing here and draw kind of like this shape here that doesn't really have to be perfect. The only thing that has to be right is the bottom hem because we are gonna see that. And let me do Arrange, Send to Back. But one thing that I do wanna do with the bottom hem is I wanna draw a fold back line where the front of the garment folds back here. So I'm gonna do Control C and Control F to make the same shape in the front. And I'm gonna cut this on the sides, delete what I don't need. I only need this bottom line to be parallel to what I just drew. I'm gonna select it and hold Alt Shift to bring it up. And I'm gonna make that as tall, as high as I want my fold back to be. And again, this doesn't have to be like a perfect shape because it's gonna be overlapped by the front. That's what I want my fold back to be like. And I'm gonna just fill it in with white and double click, and it's on top of that inside back. Now I have my hem looking the right way. Okay, we're almost there. Now we're gonna quickly draw that belt. And since the body is filled in right now, I can't see it. So I'm just gonna take the 2 main body parts, remove the fill temporarily, And I'll lock everything again with Control 2. And we're going to quickly draw that tie. We'll take our contrast color using the green color. And if this looks confusing to you right now, then you can just totally turn off this whole layer and just make a new layer where you're going to draw the tie, because you're basically just copying on top of the reference picture. So let's just draw that tie without all the other lines interfering for now. So we're going to draw the main shapes of the tie, break it down into main shapes like we did with the others. So I see this main belt shape right here, and it comes out a little bit from the waist. Then we're going to draw the loop here, just following the shape of what we see. And I like to close my shapes. And now let's draw the ends of the tie. One is overlapping the other, so I'm kind of just making up my shape a little bit here. And let me just lock this one because the other one is going to overlap over it. And with a contrast color, I'm going to draw that loop that's in the middle. It's holding the whole belt loop together. Make sure that that's on top of everything. And let me just fill that in with white. Fix the shape here a little bit. Now I can see that there's a little bit of movement lines and folds and shadows here, and I do like to draw those. But before we do that, real quick, if you're finding this content useful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It'll help me to keep bringing you more videos like this. So let's quickly do those. Shouldn't take you too long. Let's take a contrast color. And remember, we made those movement lines pretty thin, like a 0.35 stroke. And just draw wherever you see them, wherever you think that they are, or wherever you think that the garment needs it. And then we'll make one here. Let me make these ends a different color so I can see where they should be. And here I'm making another movement line. So now we'll take those movement lines and select them all, object group, and all at the same time. We're gonna go ahead and change the width profile just to make them into that thin, thick type of shape. And let's lock all of this and draw the shadows. So I'm gonna take the fuchsia color and just make shadows wherever I think that they should be. Go to Window, Graphic Styles. That makes your shadow the characteristics that you want. And I'm just going to draw them all in black. And I'll apply the graphic style to them afterwards. So now they're all the same graphic style, grouping them. And I just want those movement lines to be in front of the shadows. So let's fill our belts. Let's fill our main belt shapes in. Change the color of the movement lines. So select same stroke color. Just go ahead and make those black. I'm gonna go ahead and just make my belt outlines black like they're gonna be in the end. So I think that's a pretty nice looking belt. And I'm gonna want there to be another main shadow that's going around, basically around the whole belt. So I'm gonna group the whole belt to Control C and Control F. And you can see here that now I have two groups that are the same, that are the belt. So I'm gonna lock this first group that's in the front. And then I'm gonna select the back group and I'm gonna change the stroke of the main parts to a 3 or a 4 actually. I'm gonna remove the fill because we don't need it. I'm going to Object, Expand, so that it's a fill. And I'm going to apply my graphic style. And that's gonna give you a shadow all around your belt. So we're almost done with our sketch, but a couple more things. Let's unlock everything. Let's fill the two sides of the main body and sleeves with white again. Now let's select on any area that has the fuchsia lines, do select same stroke color. And now we're gonna change all those fuchsia lines into black like they should be. And our sketch is almost complete, almost. So remember when I said earlier that in this tutorial, we're not gonna draw the buttons, but we're just gonna use pre-drawn buttons, and I will show you how to make these buttons in another tutorial. But for now, I just want you to see that the reference picture has these tortoise shell buttons. They look like 4-hole buttons. So that's what I'm gonna use on this sketch. And I have my buttons right here that I brought in from another file that I drew before. And I have a whole button and then I have a partial button that I'm gonna put on the shoulder epaulets. So I left my button placeholder right here. And I'm just gonna take this new button, place it right on top, and I'm gonna lock that. And then I'm gonna get rid of the placeholder. And then I'm going to unlock it, select the button, use my reflection tool, and I'm gonna reflect that over to the other side. Do the same thing, lock it, and then delete the placeholder. And then this partial button, I'm just gonna put it up here where I can see from the reference picture that's kind of peeking out from behind the sketch. I'm just gonna place that partial button right here. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna reflect it using my reflect tool and holding Alt Shift to reflect that to the other side. Here, I think the collar looks a little bit lumpy. I'm just gonna fix the shape just a little bit. You can always go back in and adjust things. So I'm turning off the eye of the reference so that it's not peeking out anymore. And my whole sketch is drawn now. First, I'm gonna make sure that everything is unlocked. And then I'm gonna drag over everything and group it all together. We're coming up on the end, but don't go just yet. Just a couple more things to show you. So our sketch is pretty much made, but the final touches are one, that we're gonna quickly add our color to the body of the sketch. So I'm gonna click on any part that's white and do select same fill color. And I'm gonna select this nice classic beige color that I have here. And then I'm gonna select the inside back, those two light gray parts. And I'm just gonna select a little bit darker beige color to be the inside back, just to differentiate it from the front. And you see how those multiply blend mode shadows look nice over the color. That's why we did multiply, because if we just left it in normal mode, it might look a little harsh. So this actually blends the shadows into the new color in a better way. And that's why we use that. And what I'm gonna do, just to add a little something extra, is just to make the main parts of the garment a little bit thicker stroke than the other parts of the garment. I'm selecting the two sleeves and the two main body parts and the collar, and instead of a 1.5 stroke, I'm gonna make them a 2 point. And if you wanna make the lapel 2 point, you can do that also. And it just pops it a little more from these movement lines and the smaller details like the belt and the epaulettes. Some people make a whole layer underneath and they just make a thick outline around the whole thing. But for this garment, because it's got like little details like this side belt detail, that type of outline might interfere a little bit. So I'm just gonna do it this way. And last but not least, you can also add a drop shadow. And we do that by clicking on the whole group, select Effect, Stylize, Drop Shadow. And it gives you this drop shadow option, and you can click on preview to see what that's gonna look like. Now, this is like the default settings here where it gives you multiply and a 75% opacity, and you can change the X and Y offset and the blur and even the color. I think this 75% is a little harsh. I wanna do a more subtle drop shadow, so let's do like a 35%, and I can uncheck and check that preview box to see what that's gonna look like. Or maybe let's do like a 50%. And I like that better than the 75%. And there you go. Now, drop shadows can sometimes freeze your Illustrator or even crash it sometimes. So I don't recommend using them often, but if you do want to give your presentation a little bit more of a pop, you can add that drop shadow, but I recommend doing it at the very end. So now that you've got your sketch down, you can have so much fun making different colorways. Now, you know that in fashion, we don't just draw the front, right? We have to draw the back. So stay tuned for an upcoming tutorial on how to draw the back of this jacket. Thanks for watching. See you on the next video.